So I just got back from watching DragonBall Super Broly, and oh my god, it's amazing. Now, as I'm sure most of you can tell, I am a huge fan of the entire Dragon Ball franchise, pretty much since I was like 5 and watching it after school instead of doing my homework. And I have been excited for this movie since we got this original trailer. And that is where I am torn in doing this review. I want to give an honest opinion for you non-Dragon Ball fans out there if this is a good movie or not, while also being able to talk about it to people wanting to know if this is a good Dragon Ball film or not. So to tackle it, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a different approach for this review by looking at this film from 2 different perspectives. How this movie holds up from the perspective of your average moviegoer with little to no knowledge of Dragon Ball, and how it holds up as a guy watching his childhood hero get to punch things. Now, as a quick note, I watched the Funimation dub because I live here and not here, and as of right now, it is the only version I can watch. But also, this was the dub cast I grew up with, and hearing Sean Schemmel and Chris Sabat play these characters never fails to take me back to a nostalgic trip. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. Dragon Ball Super Broly is a really interesting case in the Dragon Ball franchise. Rather than getting a veteran animator from the show, they opted on getting Tetsuya Nagamine to direct, and I truly feel that that was a pretty good idea. This movie is truly one of the most unique looking entries of the entire franchise. The individual details of every character is lessened, but this leads to them being much more expressive and allows for more dynamic movement when it comes to the actual animation. Almost every frame has something moving so fluidly that the entire world just seems real. The fights feel like this dance and feel entirely different from what Dragon Ball has done before. There were so many long takes for these fights and everything was moving so fast you couldn't help but get sucked into every little movement that was happening. The way that every action just flowed into the next so seamlessly wasn't just great for anime standards, but for 2D animation as a whole. But the animation isn't the only thing that got a major step up. The writing also manages to be a lot better than normal as well. Dragon Ball's writing and pacing has always been a problem for the TV show. The shows are full of filler or episodes that go nowhere for the story, and the movies tend to be these little side stories that don't have many development or character arcs for anyone, just usually looking for an excuse to animate a fight with higher budgets. Even Battle of Gods and Resurrection F felt like that at times. But here, the film really wants you to care about every character in this film and crafts the entire story around their origins and personalities. This is why I feel like if you're looking to get into the Dragon Ball franchise, this is probably one of the best places to start. We see how these characters' destinies are all connected, and any context from the show that you need to understand the story is portrayed excellently through the prologue. Like, imagine if the Krypton sequence of Man of Steel was shorter and had an actual point to it. Now, I know some of you have been thinking that I've been pretty vague throughout this entire review, and it's mainly because I feel like you guys should just watch this movie. It is the best Dragon Ball film by far. It is a beautiful 2D animated film, and it's just one of the most amazing animated films I've seen in general. And to explain my points further, I need to get into spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen it, close this video, go to the nearest theater, and watch it for yourself. Or if you're finding this video at a later date, buy that Blu-ray and experience this for yourself. Then come back here so you can figure out exactly why I think this movie is so great, and some of the problems I had with it that I can't talk about because they're mostly spoilers. So if I've piqued your interest with my adoration for the film, then please stop watching the video right now and see it for yourself. But for those of you still here, let's get into the details. The film starts with the story of Dragon Ball Minus, a bonus chapter at the end of Jocko the Galactic Patrolman, and it really was the smartest way to start this film because it adds the one thing that most Dragon Ball films, especially the past Broly films, have been missing. Character. See, Broly was a cool villain that really had nothing to him. He was cool in the fact that he was pretty much Dragon Ball's Hulk, but when the sun gets real low, he's just a blank slate. So for this film, they gave him a personality, gave him a sad backstory, and lo and behold, you now have one of the coolest characters in Dragon Ball. The basic story of Paragus and Broly stays exactly the same in the film. King Vegeta is scared of Broly's latent abilities, exiles him, Paragus defects from the Saiyan Empire to follow his son, Broly is super strong and can't be restrained, so Paragus creates a device that lets him control Broly if he ever gets out of hand. It's the same basic backstory that we had in Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan, but in that film, this is where Broly's character and story ends, minus being a literal crybaby, which is something that I appreciate being cut out of his backstory. So while this is a reinterpretation, they keep the basic parts of his story that work while also eliminating the parts that brought him down. And through this new backstory, we have an excuse to make him more interesting. Instead of having the personality of a brick, he's this calm and gentle Saiyan that hasn't had any interaction with anyone except for his obviously abusive father. His only friend was this giant monster that his father shot the ear off of. So he's hesitant to make new friends while also still being a caring soul. It's fun even seeing Goku recognize this and treating their early parts of the fight as more of a sparring session rather than something world-ending. But when he starts to get angry, then the tone of everything changes, from the fight to the soundtrack. But as cool as Broly is, some of it comes off as really stupid if you're coming off the ending of Dragon Ball Super. While fighting Broly, Goku asked Vegeta, "Have you ever seen a Saiyan like this before?" If you're watching the film, this seems like a throwaway line to raise the stakes of the fight, but coming right off the Tournament of Power, and the film even implies it's very close to after the end of the tournament, your mind goes to just one thing. What about Kale? Before the idea of making Broly a canon part of the franchise, Kale was going to be the way for the writers to project the ideas of Broly onto a canon character without just throwing Broly into the show. But bringing him back in this film just comes off as a complete 180 of that idea. And don't play the Toriyama forgot card that works as an excuse for most mistakes like this. Kale was literally animated in this film as a flashback. Part of me wishes that Kale's legendary Super Saiyan form wasn't such an important aspect of the Tournament of Power if they were just going to include Broly as a canon part of the universe right after it, especially since he is handled with such elegance and grace in this film. The ending of the film got me really excited for what the future of Dragon Ball holds for Broly as a character. I'm really excited for the inevitable Dragon Ball Heroes fight between regular Broly and this Broly, but again, that is a super nitpick of a throwaway line of dialogue that didn't sit right with me as a Dragon Ball fanatic who analyzes every small detail of every single part of this series. The story itself is better written than literally anything else bearing the Dragon Ball name. The dialogue, the pacing, the story were all a major step up. While I feel like Akira Toriyama doesn't know how to progress Goku and Vegeta's characters anymore, which was a major problem that Super had, he manages to create pretty good story arcs for every newer character. Seeing these awesome characters grow and develop is something that has helped immensely because of how beautiful the animation is. This style breaks almost every convention that Dragon Ball has had. The budget is on full display for this film. The fight scenes move so fast it can be admittedly hard to keep up with at times, but almost every fight scene has so much fluidity to each little motion that each character has. Unlike the show as well, the animators do not like to cut from the action. Instead, to keep the full experience to feel like it was a bit of a dance, they animate so many of these fight scenes as if they were long takes, never cutting from the action, instead following these characters through every punch in glorious 2D action. There are moments that this film decides to rely on CGI for its action, however here I felt like the way it was used was very interesting. Rather than just using it to cut corners while animating, the only time it was really used was when Goku and Vegeta went Super Saiyan Blue to fight Broly. Goku and Broly suddenly became full CGI models and started punching each other. This film really likes to play up the power of transformation, something that I feel like most Dragon Ball media just sort of takes for granted at this point. With the build up to the form and the ensuing fight scene, it felt more like a deliberate way of presenting the fight on a new power scale to differentiate it from the rest. And with the new art style, I feel like the CGI models blend in much better than in the past. It doesn't take you out of the film the way it did for Battle of Gods or Resurrection F. But I will admit that it isn't nearly as interesting to see on screen as the 2D animation used in the film, mostly because of how insanely well done the entire film just looks. It's a small blemish on a film that contains some of the most stellar 2D animation that I've seen in nearly a decade. Especially when Broly starts to fight Gogeta, I am absolutely floored. This scene alone is making me want to go back to the theaters and rewatch the film. Their fight goes from fighting in lava to breaking the fabric of reality, looking like it's the same place where Doctor Strange went to bargain, to breaking the fabric of reality back into the real world. It's so stupid, but at no point does it feel like it jumps the shark at all. The build up to these moments is paced so well through the animation that you can't help but clap when the stupid stuff like this starts happening. So, what is my final verdict? Dragon Ball Super Broly is easily my absolute favorite piece of Dragon Ball media. It is the most well-written and animated film to come out of the franchise. My biggest fear about how awesome this film is knowing that whenever Dragon Ball Super or whatever replacement TV show they have is probably going to retell this movie in a similar way to how Dragon Ball Super retold Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. This was such an event in Dragon Ball that seeing it redone would just be a disservice. Even if you aren't a Dragon Ball fan, the film's breathtaking animation will keep you occupied even if you get lost in the immense amount of lore that precedes this film. But even then, the film gives you all the information that you have to know in a pretty great prologue that satisfies all lore-based needs for the film. Missing this film as a Dragon Ball fan, an anime fan, or even a fan of 2D animation in general would be a huge mistake. This was some of the most fun I've had in theaters in a long time, and I'm excited to see where the franchise goes next. Hey guys, I just want to thank you for letting me rant on about how much I love Dragon Ball so much. If you want to see more of my thoughts on Dragon Ball, then you can click that playlist over there to see what I thought of all the Dragon Ball Z films so far. And if you just want to hear more of my beautiful voice, then I highly recommend subscribing because I do a lot of Dragon Ball content along with Sonic, movies, and other video games. Alright, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.